Everyone in the bowling world, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Show here on Bowlers Network. You'll notice that my beautiful co-host with me, Carolyn, is gone again. She's out visiting and watching her daughter bowl in the college bowling out. I guess I'm not even sure where it's at. So anyway, today we're going to go through a few things. But before we get into that, I want to make sure again to thank our sponsor, Farmers Union Insurance. They have been so gracious and so good to the sport of bowling. Make sure that if you are in the market for insurance, whether it be home and auto, life, whatever it may be, and you're in one of their markets, give them a chance to at least give you a quote. They're awesome to work with. And again, we thank them. They have done so much for our show and for the sport of bowling over the last few years. So thank you again to Farmers Union Insurance. If you haven't yet, go to BowlersNetwork.com and go to our social media channels. Please like, subscribe, and share. It means so much as we're trying to do a lot to grow our sport as well. So today, I'm going to bring to you two of the most knowledgeable people in the sport of bowling. Again, the wonderful Mr. Norm Duke. Welcome to the show, Norm. And Ronald Hickland, CEO of CTD Bowling. Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. So, guys, today we're going to go through a couple of things, and maybe we have a list that I can pull up. We're going to give a quick little PBA update. We're going to talk about some ball and surface management. We have Ron Hickland here, who anybody can give us some information on that. That would be him. We're going to talk about those pesky corner pins. What's the difference between a flat and a ringing pin? How do we maybe fix it, and what moves we can make to get around that? And we're going to bring up our bowling Mythbusters. And we're going to do our fan spotlight in the end. We're going to bring up comments and questions of you, the viewers. So make sure to comment below so we can bring your name up in the future. So let's get started with a PBA update. Boys, what are you following? What do you know? Let's start with Ron. Have you been watching it?
I have been watching some of it. Obviously, Kyle's a good friend of mine, so I was kind of, watching, seeing where he was doing, how he's doing, and it's a little tricky right now.
Yeah, he's going up.
Went out.
Yeah, he does. He's going up against Chris Prather, and last I checked, he was down 3-1. So Chris must be throwing the ball well. I mean, have you? So what have you seen? I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, Norm.
Yeah. Plus, Chris gets better over time on a pair of lanes. So the more they start hooking, the more devastating he becomes. So the longer this match goes, the more in favor of Prather, I feel like.
Well, and Chris's, Chris's release is unbelievable.
Isn't it?
I mean, he just got the smoothest release ever. And Kyle's been on the show a couple of times. Do you want to talk of one of the nicest Southern gentlemen ever? I mean, that is Kyle Troop. Wow, I like Kyle, and obviously you know him well. And we had Guppy on here not too long ago, right? The week he was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, Guppy was on the show. That is a character. That man is. We need more people like that. I mean, Ron, have you ever had a chance to meet Guppy?
Oh yeah.
What's your take?
I mean, I think, Guppy's one of those guys that you meet him and you just kind of like, you want to hang out with him. You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk to him. You want to have a beer with him. He's one of those guys that he's very electric and magnetic to people. So that's the kind of people that you really want in sport too, for sure.
Yeah.
His kid's the same way. Kyle's the same way too, right? So you hang around Kyle, you meet Kyle, you're like, man, I want to hang out with this guy. So you can see where he gets it from.
Yeah. I try to send, text messages to as many people as I can, wishing them happy Easter and things like that. And Kyle's like Johnny on the spot. He just instantly replies and, same to you. And anyway, so he's just a wonderful person. So going down the list here, the only one that so far has closed out the deal, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. It's Austin. Is it Grammer? Am I saying it right? He's the only one that I have right now that's closed out. He beat Alex Horton. And so earlier this week, your pick, Norm, was Kyle Sherman, right, for the week?
Right.
And he's down to Chris Vi 2-1, but he's had a great week, and he's really bowling well. So what's your take?
Same kind of thing. The longer that match lasts, the more that it becomes a favor for Chris Vi, just because they can get further left easier. Not to say that you can't still out bowl him, no doubt about it. I was usually trapped into that scenario before, as well, where you know that if you're bowling somebody with a big hand or somebody who hooks it a lot, you want to get rid of it early, 4 games and out. Otherwise, that 6th, 7th game, oh my gosh, you seem like every time you move left 4 or 5 boards and you say, all right, it's my mother may I move, you're right on top of their practice ball. So it's not like you move in and you get free link.
Yeah. Chuck had earlier this week, his pick was Darren Tang.
Yeah.
And Darren's leading Thomas Larson 3-1. The last I checked, I don't know where that match stands right now, but and then my buddy AJ Johnson, he's down right now to Patrick Dombrowski 3-1. So he lost. He's done.
He gone.
Oh shoot! Love you, Kyle. Or love you, AJ. I just love that guy to death. And where are we at here? Tom Doherty. Like to see the older guys represent. Right? He's up 3-1 the last I saw.
If you think he's an older guy,
he's older than the rest of the field. That's what I'm saying.
No, he's not no older guy.
He's on the 50s. He's out on the 50 tour.
Is he really?
Yes.
Well, yep. I would have said no way to that. I did not realize he was over 50.
Yes, he is. I've seen him out a couple of times. So all right, we're going to turn to the expert, the engineer of the bowling world, the Ronald Hickland, the doctor bowling guy. Give us some tips, Ron, on ball and surface management. I mean, what do most amateur players not realize of what you can do to the ball and its surface and how important that might be?
I think the most important thing is just realizing that your surface changes over time. Right. So a lot of times what happens is consumers get bowling balls, let's say it's 2000 grit, and they kind of think that ball stays at 2000 grit. In actuality, it changes pretty quick. And it will end up right at about 4,700, which we call stable. All balls tend to get to 4,700. And the reason's kind of interesting. A lot of people think it's related to the lane, but actually it's not. It's related to all of the systems that return the ball. So as an example, once your ball leaves the pin deck and goes into the carpet, that friction is beginning to change the surface of the ball. You have a wheel that's got to pull the ball up 6 feet and drop it down a ramp, and it's got to come up the ball return system. All that friction changes the bowling ball. And if you check those pieces of equipment, they're right at about 4,700, and that's why bowling balls end up at about 4,700. So the biggest thing that consumers probably don't realize is the surface of their bowling ball changes, and if you want to keep the reaction that you have to maintain the surface.
So give that in a way that an average league bowler may not have any clue of what you just said. Give me an idea that says, okay, my ball comes out of the box and it says on the box 2000 grit. Okay. What is that? Let's start there. What does that mean?
So that's the final finish is what the manufacturer puts on the ball to get the performance that they're looking for. So it's a way to change the reaction of the ball. Some bowling balls are 2000, sometimes they're polished, sometimes they're 1000, sometimes they use multi-steps. They'll go like a 500 to 1000 to 2000. But the reason for doing that is trying to put a surface on the ball that gives that particular bowling ball a specific type of reaction. And all bowling balls have some sort of final finish applied to them through all the manufacturers.
Okay, so Norm and Ron both give me your take. So if I throw the ball, let's say I'm a league bowler and I throw the ball at, and it shows up on the scoreboard and I'm showing it at the pins and it says I'm throwing it 12 miles an hour. Okay, and let's say that I, maybe have 250 to 300 revs on it and it's a house shot. What grit should I look for on my next ball to give me the best possible reaction? So we'll start with you, Ron, and maybe Norm, if you have something you can lend to that as well.
So there's a couple things there. So one, the 12 miles an hour is at the pins. So that means off your hand, it's probably 14 or 15 miles an hour. That's kind of the first thing. And then did the ball strike or not? Like if the ball's striking and you haven't changed the surface of your ball, then it probably isn't going to change. Especially if you bowled more than 3 games. If you bowl a league set, that ball's going to get to 4,700 for the most part. So typically what we would say is, if the ball's not striking, you're going to have to make a move, right? Because you can't alter the surface of the ball while you're bowling, which I'm sure Norm will be able to go into much more detail about what kind of moves to make. But I think that primarily what you would use the surface for is just to get you in the right part of the lane to give yourself some room for error, especially if you're bowling on a house shot, right? You want to be able to have miss room to the right and a little bit of hold to the left. If you have that, you have the better chance of being able to strike more often.
Is it better for me in that scenario, if I'm that player, is it better for me to have a ball with a duller finish or a ball with a more of a polished finish?
So I would say more times than not, a duller finish works better. More times than not. There are certain situations where it is more advantageous to have the shinier finish, depending on the lane condition, the lane surface. But more times than not, a little bit of surface tends to give you a little bit more leeway, especially when you miss in. You don't want the ball to overreact, right? So if you polish the ball, that tends to make the ball go longer and react a little more aggressive. But that also could mean if you miss in on a house shot, it could go too long and not recover. So you're looking for that happy medium, right? You want to be able to miss in a little bit, the ball picks up just enough to be able to kick out the corner pin, and you miss a little bit to the right or outside. You want that ball to be able to react and make up the difference, if you will, and then be able to get you a strike too. So typically a little more surface. Norm, how often do you bowl? How often when you were bowling on tour, how often did you bowl with balls that did not have surface?
Oh, most of the time.
Okay.
Most of the time, simply because we're either, you have a full day when we only oiled them once a day for 35 years. And so, you were begging to shine a yellow dot or a white dot just so you can finish the day. You ran out of room at least once. I think the best thing for our viewer, though, is when you get a ball out of the bag and you roll it down the lane and you can't get the ball to react as much, then you go for your sandpaper, right? So you go get your 2000 sandpaper. And that's what worked last week. So you sand that thing up with 2000 sandpaper. You got to realize that a pro's not going to do that near as often because we can soften up and we can get more rotation. Maybe 1000 grit is more common for us. Now, the first 2 or 3 games when you're bowling on the U.S. Open at 52 feet, nothing but oil, you doggone right we're going to go for surface. Seldom ever are we going to go more than 1000 grit unless we're sanding, let's say, reactors or something. But the main thing for you guys to realize is that 2000 paper that you just hit that ball with, as Ronald just said, it only lasts a couple, 3 games. And even the first 2 or 3 shots, you will see a little bit of the ball just kind of desanding itself. And like Ronald said, a little bit of oil in the pores, and it's got to travel on the lane, got to travel on the returns in the pit area. All of that stuff is pressure on that ball, and it just smooths it out a little bit. So if you did good with 2000 grit in your league last week, chances are you're going to have to freshen that thing up before you start the following. You can't just go in and say, okay, this ball worked last week exactly like it is. Let me do it exactly like it is. No, because it's not exact unless you do it exactly like you started last week, where you sanded it up. So we do that often. We know what we started with the round before. We know that it's going to tighten up. And so typically, if I'm using 1000 grit sandpaper out of the gate, I may go to 500 grit the next round and just hit it lighter because I know I'm going to need a little more help. Man, managing surface, it's so much harder than people think. You think, I don't get a hook, let me just sand it up. When you're trying to get strikes, and we'll talk about this in a little bit with our 10 pins, when you're trying to get strikes, you got to get the ball in the pins the correct way. And amateurs, you're going to have a lot of friction to the right, a lot of oil to the left. So you can play a shinier ball in the friction, you can play a duller ball in the oil. Pros aren't going to be able to do that as much because we don't have that high dispersity of friction to the right and oil to the left. It's kind of maintained with us. So it's harder for us, I think.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to our last show, and Norm, where we had Chuck and you on, and we were talked about is leaving corner pins luck. Someone just having a bad night, and we've talked about that, right? You hear that at league all the time is, boy, I just can't carry it. I'm having bad luck, and the stinking corner pins. Well, so this leads us to the next topic. Are you leaving ringing 10 pins or 7 pins, or are you leaving a flat corner pin? So we've got a video of what a ringing 10 pin is. So here's the one that Simo threw against Marshall. Look at that. Wrap. I mean, that just went, show it again. I mean, that just was an awesome ball, but watch that 6-pin wrap around the 10-pin. Just going down again. It does not settle even for a second. Wrap. So, real quick, Ron, from an engineering standpoint, what causes a ringing 10-pin?
So the key there is actually, there's two things you can watch for, but the main thing to watch for, if you can replay the graphic again and let people watch it, is watch where that ball exits the pin deck, because that ball's going to go over the 9-pin spot. Watch where the ball exits the pin deck. That's the key. It's going to go over the 9-pin spot. See that? That's the problem. Your bowling ball, really, if you threw a good shot, would split the 8 and the 9-pin. So every time you leave that, for the most part, it's because your ball is going over the 9-pin. Now, the question is, why is it going over the 9-pin, right? There's a couple of answers for that. It could be that you threw it too fast, right? Hit the pocket. Threw it a little too fast, so then the ball deflects a little bit too much. It could be that your bowling ball actually, it's more rolling forward, so it made the move that it was supposed to make, but now it's kind of out of energy, so now it's rolling a little forward. It could be that when the angle that you came into the pocket was a little bit light, so then that's what made the ball roll over the 9-pin spot when it was all said and done. But ultimately, it's not a good shot. Like a ringing 10 is, it's the ball's supposed to split the 8-9. If it splits the 8-9, you're going to strike. You are definitely going to strike.
So, Norm, in all of your experience on tour, what adjustment did you make when you had a ringing 10?
Well, first of all, you got to get where Ronald and I may not agree on this, and who really cares. I gave angle very little importance, because I can follow back a ball from fifth arrow and roll the 10, and I can sideways hook one on the back end and roll the 10. So what difference does angle make? I just went through the largest angle differences known to man, and I get the same exact pin carry. So I gave angle zero credence. What I gave credence to is the window of opportunity of that bowling ball. If like Simo shot right there, that ball hits the pins before it was in its momentous state. Now it's going down the lane so quickly, it's spinning so hard, you're getting a lot of hook off of it, but it's not driving. And as Ronald says, he got a little bit of deflection off of that thing because it just wasn't in that state yet. If you also notice, he missed in there a couple of boards, and that ball went just a bit too long. So his ball hits the pins before it was in its momentous state. Now, also, Ronald mentioned when a ball's rolling a little too end over end after it hooks. So if it hooks out at all, you got the same problem. You're going to get deflection. So you get deflection for it hooking out, and you get deflection for it hitting the pins before the hook. There is a window in there that, by golly, if you get into that window every time, you can get 20, 30, 40, 50 shots in a row that strike. Well, if luck had anything to do with it, you couldn't get 30 in a row. No way. It's impossible, right? Because there's too much luck involved. But luck has got a little less to do with it than most people would think. In that case, that's a ringing 10. That ball was in the oil a little too long, never got into its state, and it deflect 6-pin around the 10. Most of the time, you'll get flat 10s when the ball hooks out.
Right. So to the viewers here, there's 3 phases that a ball goes through. There's the skid, there's the hook, and there's the roll phase. Okay. So
and there's one more. There's one more.
Okay.
Roll out.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Eventually the ball.
I just mentioned that, and that's a big part of it. So the rollout's got to be mentioned.
Yes, correct. So I'm sorry, good correction. So basically what you're saying in that shot, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying in that shot that you just saw Simo throw is the ball had not had enough of its roll phase. It was still too much in the hook phase, which is why the energy was still so stored, and it didn't have enough, like you just said, the momentous phase, where it could drive to the 8-pin side. It was still too much in the hook phase, which why it caused the deflection it did, which then caused the wrap 10. Is that basically a summary?
Yeah, basically. And if you look, proof of this is when a lot of times when a lot of plastic is being thrown down the lane, or it's late in the day and you get all of that carry down, you cannot get a turkey. Nobody in the field can get a turkey because they keep leaving stuff. And the reason is because we get so much oil right in front of the pins that now a ball can't possibly roll true every time. Maybe it rolls true here, board left, it won't. Okay, so it's the retardation of hook and of that power that is causing your ball not to hit. Look, sometimes we can hit the pocket dead flush, 10 in a row, and we can count. We got 2 solid 8s, a solid 9, a solid 7, and 2 ringing 10s. And you're thinking, man, am I this unlucky? That is your man. You got to take hold of that info. If you can't strike when you're that flush, something's wrong. Fix it. And your ball is either getting there too quick and needs to slow down a little more, or it is already slowed down and it's in its rollout phase. And it happens so quick, especially in a Simo case. I mean, that ball doesn't take long to go from hook to rolled out.
So, Ron, in that shot or a league night for the average league bowler, and I'm leaving the wrap 10s, what adjustment do I make? And at what point do I realize that I probably should move to a different ball?
So 2 things. Actually, I'm going to go back a little bit on you. You guys are going to find this either interesting or scary, one of the two. So from a physics standpoint, right, bowling balls do one of 2 things. They either slide or they roll. We tend to call it skid, hook, roll out. But from a physics standpoint, the bowling ball is either sliding or it's rolling. That's it. There is no in between. Now, what we would deem as the hook, right, the ball technically is still sliding. And that's part of the problem with the naming nomenclature in bowling, because if the ball is sliding, as we saw, as kind of what Norm was kind of alluding to there, that's still deflection. The ball's still going to deflect. So Simo's shot, it's hooking, right? The ball's hooking, but because from a physics standpoint, that ball is still sliding, it's very easy for that to deflect. And the roll, that roll out, as Norm calls it, that's actually the other phase of actual ball motion, which the ball actually is rolling end over end, which means the ball's lost all the axis rotation, it's lost all of its tilt, and it's rolling forward. When that happens, that's a separate type of shape from the sliding. That's the first thing. To answer your question, so, I mean, we're saying you've got deflection, right? That's what we're saying. We're saying that the ball's deflecting. So the key is, how do you fix the deflection? There's lots of ways you can fix the deflection. You can get the ball into the friction a little earlier. You can slow it down a little bit. You can create a little bit more forward roll to get out of the skid phase. But at the end of the day, it's not, as Norm said, it's not luck. It's not like, oh, I'm just having a bad night. We as amateur players are more likely to say that, but that's because we don't understand what's actually happening. And what's actually happening is your ball is still skidding and your ball is deflecting. And because of that, you're not able to create that drive that you need to split the 8 and the 9 pin. I can show you, there's actually a USBC study where they showed that if the ball is splitting the 8 and 9, you're going to strike. Like 98% of the time, you're going to strike.
So we got to get the ball in a roll phase. Is what basically I'm hearing. And in order to make that happen, we got to do a couple of different things. Either pick which one, one that suits the player better, right? We got to either get it into dry a little sooner, which is going to get maybe like you just said, the slide, it'll, and then it'll get it into that roll. Or maybe do we ever look to change our feet, our eyes, or do we look to change a ball? Give us, just 2 quick tips, each of you, that the average league bowler can walk away with and say, if I'm doing that consistently, what are 2 things that I can walk away with to say, what can I do to get rid of that?
What's your move first? I'm going to let Norm go first. He's the pro.
Yeah, I would say on a ring and 10, 75% of my moves was 1 left with my feet and a pinch softer. I'm giving the ball a little more time, and I'm also, by moving 1 left and not pulling my target in, I'm floating it a little more to what I guess you hope to have a little more friction. So I'm exposing it to a little more friction for a little longer, 75% of the time. The other 25% is either the wrong move or a new ball. So most of the time, it was 1 left and soften it up. And then 75% of the time on a half 10, I was a board right and make the same shot. Now then, the other 25% of the time are when that's where the rubber meets the road. Because if you're just moving 1 left on a ring of 10 and it strikes every time, boy, that is a beautiful thing you just created. A lot of times that doesn't happen, and it requires more on your part. And that's where Ron says maybe get a little something else on it. Some people like Walter, I think would look a little bit closer to him. Kind of the same thing as slowing down a little bit, maybe getting it onto the floor a little bit quicker. everybody has their own little thing, but I want to tell you real quick about a process that I would go through in practice every single day, where I would move two left, two left, two left, two left, and I would throw one strike. I can't move until I strike, and I can't throw a double from the same spot. So if I'm perfect, I just strike, move two left, and go all the way across the lane. But when I'm not perfect, I'll stop. I'll not strike once, and I got to stand there until I do. I learned from that drill that I can strike every time on every other board, and I can leave 10 pins, ring and 10s, half pins on every other board as well. So the same ball in my hand, the same lane, one board left, two boards left, strikes every time. And then once I get off of those odd or even, two boards left to ring 10 every time. And I'm not saying every time. I'm talking about 75, 80% of the time. You can see it, though. It's just obvious.
Right.
So that's why I said one left, soften up, gets a strike. That was my drill, and I'm telling you, I made a lot of money off that drill over time.
So real quick, Ron, 30 seconds or less, what are two things you would advice that you would give to the amateur bowler, two quick changes that they can make?
Yeah, I love Norm's one board move. That's perfect for the ring 10. I think that's great. For the half 10, so it depends on how I'm bowling, right?
Right.
Again, like I think it really depends on how you're bowling, because I'm actually not opposed to making a ball change at that point if I'm not bowling well, because that may mean I may be in the wrong part of the lane too. So I love the one board move. It is a subtle move. It's a subtle move regardless. So I agree 100% with what Norm said there.
See, and I think one thing bowlers you're watching here take away from this is watch where your ball is exiting the pin deck. I think that is one thing very, very few people pay attention to. So it's not just what you're leaving, but watch where it exits the pin deck. Very important information.
I want to add right quick. If you're Anthony Simon or somebody that hooks it a lot, your bad shots will be behind the 9. But if you're a straight ball player, it'll be right of the center part of the 9 pin. It'll actually be right of the center part of the 9 pin, because the deflection for a straight ball player puts it further right than the angle and deflection for a hook ball player. So if you're saying my ball's behind the 9, my ball's behind the 9, sometimes that's great if you're a straight player.
Right. So now we move on in segments. We're going to go to the bowling Mythbusters. This is the fun part. I love it. This is my favorite section. So the myth is, I need to stay right where I'm at, because most bowlers in leagues kind of stay in the same thing, and they just say, I just got to stay where I'm at. I just got to throw it better. If I move, I'm going to lose my feel. I'm going to lose my consistency, because this is where I like to bowl. So we'll start with Ron. A myth, or is it busted?
Man,
myth
if you stay in the same spot, I'm going to beat you every week. Please stay in the same spot. Please do that. I would love you to stay in the same spot. You're going to get beat every single week. Bowling is about adjusting. It's all about adjusting. The lanes are always changing, and being able to watch what your ball's doing and understanding what's going on is the key to tell you what to do. So I'm watching that exit angle. I'm watching where my pin's going off the deck. I'm making the move. If you ain't doing that, let's bowl for some money.
So, confirmed or busted?
It's busted, bro.
All right. Normandy. You see bowlers at league don't make they don't make a lot of changes.
It's not. So here's the deal, what you just said. If I just threw a ball and I threw a really decent shot to the pocket and I left something, then I'm gonna stay right there and do the same thing. Well, then you're gonna leave the same thing. if you
I just got to throw it better.
If you throw it better, you're gonna leave the same thing. Because hey, look, we seldom ever. I'm gonna tell you, a 6-game block, I'll probably throw 3 shots perfect. All 6 games, 3 shots, maybe. I'll throw perfect. I want to strike on the ones that are 80, 90%. If I can strike on them, I am in business now. And I kind of hate when I make a ball change and pure it. Right, just everything is perfect, because I have not learned anything. I've just struck, but I don't know if that ball is the right ball or not now, because I just careered it. I'd rather change balls, throw like an 85%er and wally something, and then I'll breathe a little bit. And I'll say, all right.
Confirmed or busted?
Busted.
Busted.
Have we never not busted a myth?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
Good for you.
But this one is busted. Okay.
You love that, don't you?
Lesson learned. I do. Lesson learned, folks. Move during the night. Okay. Watch where your ball is exiting, but also watch how early it hooks as well. So, real quick, fan spotlight from Solo Antonio made the comment on the last show, said, wow, best bowling podcast I've seen in a long time. Norm and Chuck are the real deal. Do this again. I put that up here because you forgot about me. Norm and Chuck are the real deal, true. But you forgot about me.
Oh,
I'm
you're
just
the
kidding.
spoke. You're the
Just
man.
kidding. All right, now this next one is, I'm not sure really if this is a question or more of a comment. So I just wanted to put it up there from JC Bowler. Side rotation can still be up the back and end over end. That's proper roll these days, although most people do mean up the back to be forward and straight up the lane. I'm not really sure what that means.
Well,
Am I
kinda tell
missing
you.
something on there?
Yeah, I can kind of tell you. If you're overloaded, let's say I'm right-handed and my bowling ball is right of my hand, so I'm really underneath, kind of like I'd hold a football if I was going to really twirl it, right? If I start here and I end, let's say, at 12 o'clock with my thumb, I'm going to get side roll because of the momentum. And Leto made a fortune doing that, where he never really turned his thumb down. He just started from a wide open spot and ended up kind of where we were starting. And so he was getting a little bit of side roll, but no. I'd bust that myth even so without, that exception. The
Okay.
only way you can get side roll going up the back is if you start overloaded and end up the back.
Ron,
Norm.
Norm, you're the best. Go to ctdbowling.com. Check out their stuff. I use all of their products. They're the best cleaners that you can get. I shouldn't, exclude others, but Ron, I'm a big fan of your stuff. Big fan. I'm on staff for CTD Bowling. I don't even think Ron knows that. I'm one of theirs. So go check their stuff out. Go to CTD Bowling and watch Ron's ball reviews, some of the best in the business. Ron's a great asset to the bowling community. Thank you both. We're going to see you again noon on Monday on more Daily Show on Bowlers Network. Have a great weekend, everybody.
See ya, Ron. See ya, Jay.
Take it easy, guys.